An elderly woman walked into a private clinic in the heart of Los Angeles. In front of her, a wheelchair rolled forward, carrying her bandaged grandson. At the reception desk, she politely asked for clarification on some items in her bill, explaining that she couldn't afford to pay the full amount. The receptionist, rude and dismissive, mocked the grandmother and laughed at her. All of this happened in plain view of Keanu Reeves, who happened to be nearby. His reaction will leave no one indifferent, and the grandmother's story will touch your heart. Friends, let us know in the comments under what conditions you watch this video. In the background, while working, or during lunch. Also, don't forget to subscribe, because tomorrow another emotional story will be waiting for you. A private clinic in the heart of Los Angeles. From the outside, it looked like a five-star hotel. Mirrored walls, glass doors that opened silently, and the scent of freshly cut lilies that made visitors forget, if only for a moment, that they hadn't come to a fashion show. Inside, silence, polished floors, soft light from white lamps hanging from high ceilings like frozen suns. Everything here said, we only treat the best. But in all this shine, there was no warmth. The atmosphere was sterile and cold, like a hospital bed at 5 in the morning. On a soft, leather-like couch in the corner of the lobby sat Ellen. Her figure was unassuming, a small, elderly woman in a faded coat the color of late autumn. In her hands, a folder of medical documents held tightly between fingers that trembled, not just from age, but from anxiety. Her eyes were warm and kind, but deep inside them was a hidden exhaustion. She wasn't crying. Her gaze was a silent plea for help. She was one of those grandmothers who asked with their eyes, not their words. And that always hurts more. Next to her, a wheelchair carrying her grandson, a boy of about 12, his face half covered in bandages. Fire had touched his body, mercilessly, unfairly. He was asleep, his breathing uneven, shallow, but he was holding on. Because of her, because of Ellen. At the reception desk, Janet, as flashy as a billboard, expensive makeup, styled hair, a manicure that spoke louder than her words. She glanced at Ellen over her thin-rimmed glasses, the kind of look someone gives a discount coupon at a luxury restaurant. Her eyes held a patronizing irony, as if to say, "What are you doing here?" In the far corner, behind tinted glass, sat the manager, Mr. Kovac, clean-shaven, with a briefcase worth more than Ellen's annual pension. He cared not for the patient's health, but for the numbers on a spreadsheet. Healthcare was business, and each day was a fight for revenue, not for lives. By the entrance stood a security guard, a stocky man in a sharp uniform. He was polite, even smiled, but his posture said it all. He knew exactly who should stay in the building and who should be gently but firmly shown the door. He hadn't moved yet, but he was ready. And the other patients, each in their own way beautiful, well-groomed, dressed in designer clothes. They threw fleeting glances at Ellen, some curious, some annoyed, a few with outright disdain. In this space, Ellen's otherness was sharper than pain. Somewhere in the back of the room, unnoticed, wearing dark sunglasses, sat a man with a cup of coffee. He kept to himself, unmoved by the glamour around him. He was simply observing. And though no one knew it yet, he would soon change everything. That man was Keanu Reeves. Ellen approached the reception desk, holding the bill in both hands as if it were the last piece of evidence in her fight. Her grandson remained asleep beside the waiting area, his breathing restless. The document consisted of several pages, filled with rows of procedures, numbers, abbreviations. It all looked like an encrypted message designed to make an elderly person feel helpless. "Excuse me," Ellen said softly, stepping closer to the counter. "I'd like to ask, there are a few items on this bill I don't quite understand." Janet didn't look up. She kept clicking away at her keyboard, sighing deeply before finally glancing at the elderly woman. Her expression showed clear irritation, as if she already anticipated yet another scene to ruin her morning. "Your last name?" she asked curtly, barely enunciating the words. "Gray. My grandson, Matthew Gray. He's here. After the fire." More keyboard clicks. A pause. Then a louder sigh from Janet. "Yeah, found it. Your bill isn't paid. You still owe over $11,000. Any other questions?" Ellen swallowed gently. "There's something here. It says comprehensive screening, but I thought that had already been done. And here, expedited lab processing. We waited 4 days." "Ma'am," Janet cut in, "if you can't afford treatment at our clinic, perhaps you should consider a more affordable facility. There's probably a public hospital in your district." A few people in line chuckled. One man in an expensive suit scoffed and returned to his phone. Someone behind whispered, "Why come here if you don't have money?" Ellen lowered her eyes. A knot formed in her chest. Still, she gathered her strength. "You see, your clinic came highly recommended. I'm just asking for some clarification. I only have $9,000 left. I already paid most of it. Maybe there's something that can be adjusted." "Ma'am," Janet's voice turned metallic, "we don't negotiate at this clinic. We provide services, and you pay for them. This isn't a supermarket with discounts." Suddenly, the doors opened, and the manager, Mr. Kovac, entered the lobby. Seeing the commotion, he approached and took over before even hearing the full story. "What's the issue?" he asked, pretending to be indifferent, but already annoyed. "Client doesn't understand her bill," Janet jumped in. "She's implying we've overcharged her." "Are you serious?" Kovac smirked. "Ma'am, we don't run scams here. You received premium services at a private facility. If that's too expensive for you, perhaps you should go elsewhere." Ellen tried to speak again, but his gaze turned steely. "We don't offer discounts for emotionally unstable relatives. And please, no more scenes. This is a private clinic, not a charity shelter." His last words hung in the air, colder than the lobby's air conditioning. Ellen stood, mouth slightly open, unable to respond. Her hands trembled. This isn't fair," she whispered. "I just want to understand what I'm paying for. I gave everything I had." "And we're not a charity," Janet snapped for the third time. The security guard, who had been silently standing by the door, now approached. His steps were quiet, but firm. "Ma'am," he said politely, but with a cool detachment, "I'm going to have to ask you to leave. You're taking up staff time, disrupting operations, and inconveniencing other clients. Someone else will follow up with you regarding the outstanding balance." Silence. No one said a word. Not one voice of support. Just cold, judgmental stares. Ellen stood there, hunched, not from age, but from humiliation. Slowly, she turned toward her grandson, holding the bill and trying to preserve a shred of dignity. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She pushed the wheelchair toward the exit. As her hand reached for the door handle, a voice called out. "Excuse me, ma'am," a deep male voice said. It was quiet, but it cut through the air like a blade. Ellen turned around. Standing before her was a tall man in a dark coat. His face looked familiar. At first, she couldn't believe it, but others around her had already recognized him. It was Keanu Reeves. He held a cup of coffee in his hand and looked her straight in the eyes. "Let me take a look at that bill," he said. Keanu took the bill from Ellen's hand slowly and with respect, as if the document were more than paper, as if it were proof of a deep injustice. His fingers flipped through the pages, his eyes scanning swiftly, tension building in his face with every line. He said nothing, and that silence was louder than any shout. "You're caring for the boy alone?" he finally asked, gently but seriously. Ellen nodded, almost apologetically. Yes, he's my grandson. His parents died in the fire, the same one that injured him. He survived, but... Her voice wavered. I'm the only one left. My only income is my pension and savings. But I couldn't leave him in that public hospital. Here, they promised the best care. Keanu looked at the bill again, his brow furrowing. Are you a medical worker? He asked suddenly. Ellen looked up. Yes, a former nurse. Over 30 years at a district hospital. I was used to helping others. And now, she lowered her head. Now I'm being pushed out. And that's the hardest part. Silence. Keanu glanced at the boy in the wheelchair. His face was bandaged, but the softness of youth was still there, alive, because of her. You're not wrong for fighting for him, Keanu finally said. His voice was quiet, but firm. And you certainly don't deserve to be humiliated. He turned, eyes searching the room, and found Janet, who was already avoiding his gaze. Then the manager, who had just finished speaking with another patient. Keanu stepped forward. Please, he addressed Kovac. Call someone from accounting. I want to go over this bill, together. Kovac raised an eyebrow. I'm sorry, but it's important. Keanu cut him off, his tone sharper now. Very important. A few minutes later, a woman from the accounting department arrived, holding a copy of the bill. Keanu watched closely as she reviewed the document, stumbling slightly under the weight of his presence. Here, look. There's a charge for a repeat examination, but according to the records, it never happened. And this expedited results processing that should have been included in the base service. And this line item, she paused, shouldn't have been applied to a pediatric patient at all. It's a standard error. An error, Keanu repeated. Or policy. The accountant hesitated. Janet adjusted her name tag nervously. Kovac pressed his lips together, but Keanu was already seeing the bigger picture. Tell me, he asked the accountant, do you see these kinds of errors often on the bills of elderly patients? A pause, then a quiet confession. They rarely contest them. Often don't fully understand what they're being charged for. And management sometimes suggests extra charges to cover other clinic expenses. It was a blow, not to Keanu, but to the entire system. He stepped back slightly, trying to process the weight of it. This grandmother wasn't the first, and wouldn't be the last. This wasn't a mistake, it was a pattern. So this isn't about the bill, he whispered. It's about how people like Ellen are seen as easy targets. They stay quiet, they're ashamed to ask, and this whole polished facade is built on that. He looked at Ellen. She stood frozen, as if she couldn't believe someone had finally seen it, that her pain wasn't invisible, it was real. Keanu raised his head. This changes now, he said. Right now. His voice made everyone freeze. A few visitors who had been casually observing now stepped closer. Someone raised their phone and started recording. Others stopped pretending it didn't concern them. The eyes that had earlier slid past Ellen with indifference were now filled with surprise and shame. Something had begun to crack in the clinic's polished shine. The mask was falling. Kovac felt the shift. His glance flicked to Janet. She had turned pale. Keanu stepped into the center of the lobby and turned to face the room. I want everyone to hear this, he said clearly, projecting his voice as he opened his phone and turned on the camera. This is a private clinic in the heart of Los Angeles, and it systematically overcharges elderly patients, knowing they won't argue. Standing here is Ellen. She's raising her grandson, who survived a fire. She spent nearly all her savings, and they're throwing her out because it's too expensive for her. This isn't a mistake. This is a deliberate act of disrespect. The room fell silent. Everyone was listening. Someone began to clap. Another took off their hat. The accountant looked down. "I won't stay silent," Keanu continued, "because silence is consent, and no one has the right to humiliate people who spent their lives helping others. Especially not someone who was a nurse. Especially not a grandmother fighting for her grandson when the world turned its back." He stopped recording and immediately posted the video to social media. Within seconds, his phone buzzed. Reactions were pouring in. Someone nearby whispered, "This is going viral." And then the staff began to shift. Janet suddenly spoke up. "Perhaps we should review the bill. Maybe offer a complimentary consultation, even a course of treatment, if necessary. We're willing to reimburse the excess charges," Kovac added, "and do everything we can." "No," Keanu interrupted. "You're not doing this for her. You're doing it because you got caught. And that's not the same." He turned to Ellen and said softly, almost in a whisper, "Let's go. You don't have to endure this anymore." He gently took the boy's wheelchair and offered Ellen his arm. The clinic faded behind them, and the air outside felt still, as if everyone had just realized what had been in front of them all along, and they felt ashamed. A few people from the line approached Janet and Kovac, asking questions. One man took out his wallet and said, "I think I'd better review my bill too." Another woman added, "My mother complained, but no one believed her." Keanu opened the door of his black car. He carefully rolled the wheelchair into the designated space. Ellen got in beside him. "Are you all right?" he asked, starting the engine. I don't know what to say," she whispered. "For the first time in a long time, I feel like someone sees us." "This isn't the end," Keanu replied, and they drove off to another clinic, the one he had personally vetted, where every line item on the bill was transparent, where no one raised an eyebrow at an elderly woman, where compassion was the standard, not the exception, and Keanu paid for the treatment. No spotlight, no cameras, just because it was the right thing to do. The video Keanu posted on social media spread across the world like wildfire in a dry forest. His words, simple and sincere, broke through screens and reached millions of hearts. In the first 6 hours, the video amassed over 20 million views. News headlines read, "Keanu Reeves exposes fraud in prestigious clinic. A hero on and off the screen. One grandmother's fight changed the system." By the second day, police arrived at the clinic. Investigators reviewed billing records, interviewed patients, and conducted an audit. Within hours, it became clear. Dozens of inflated charges, false diagnoses, and services never rendered. All targeted at elderly patients. Janet was immediately terminated. Suspected of falsifying records, she now faced legal investigation. Her former protector, manager Kovac, tried to deflect blame onto everyone else, but the system would no longer protect him. He was also fired. Both were now under threat of criminal prosecution. Under public pressure, the clinic's administration issued a formal apology. A commission was formed to review over 1,000 bills from the past year. Many clients received refunds, along with compensation for emotional distress. The clinic initiated staff training on ethics, communication, and patient dignity. Change had begun. And all thanks to one grandmother who refused to stay silent. Ellen never asked for anything. She didn't demand apologies, file lawsuits, or talk to the media. She simply watched in quiet relief as justice finally began to take shape. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel powerless. She felt strong. Keanu didn't stop there. He continued sharing Ellen's story, updating his posts, and documenting the progress. "This isn't about anger. It's about dignity," he wrote. "About a grandmother who preserved humanity in a world that had forgotten it." The financial help he gave Ellen remained private, but every month, funds quietly appeared in her account. And at the clinic where they now received care, the staff knew if something went wrong, there'd be a call from Keanu Reeves himself. Months later, Keanu returned to the clinic. He arrived on the same day Matthew completed his final treatment session. He walked into the room. Ellen was sitting by the window, and Matthew, no longer bandaged, wearing a light t-shirt, had eyes that once again sparkled with childhood. "Hey there, champ," Keanu said as he stepped in. "How are you?" Matthew, surprised and moved, stood up and walked to him. He hugged Keanu tightly, like a child who didn't want to let go. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for seeing us, for giving me a chance at a future." Tears streamed down Ellen's face. She covered her mouth with her hand, but she couldn't stop. For the first time, she was crying not from fear or pain, but from relief. She knew now her grandson had a chance. She knew that all her struggle, her strength, her survival had meant something. Keanu sat beside her and took her hand. He didn't say anything. He just embraced them both, Ellen and Matthew, the way you hold someone you never want to lose. In that embrace, there was no celebrity, only humanity. And the world, watching this story unfold, felt something real. Goodness lives, and it will always find those who refuse to break. Dear viewers, this story isn't just about one grandmother, and it's not just about one clinic. It's a story about all of us, about how easy it is to overlook someone nearby who needs help, and about how much one act of compassion can truly change. Keanu Reeves showed us more than fame. He showed us heart. He stopped where others walked by. He spoke when most stayed silent. And it was his empathy that became the spark to ignite a fire for justice. He didn't see a burden in Ellen. He didn't see a problem. He saw a human being. And maybe that's what we need most today, to truly see each other. Ellen didn't ask for help. She simply held on. And that quiet resilience became an example for millions. Because real strength isn't in loud words. It's in the quiet, everyday heroism. Her story is a reminder that even the most humble person can shake an entire system. The world became better because of that moment. But it can grow even better if each of us takes a small step toward others. Talk to a lonely grandmother in line. Support someone too shy to ask. Offer a bit of your time, your attention, your kindness, and watch it come back 100-fold. Never think your actions don't matter, because maybe your gesture will be someone's last hope. And remember, goodness doesn't have a size. It just needs to exist. Like Keanu, like Ellen, like each of us, if we choose not to look away. The world doesn't change from governments or corporations. It changes from the heart. And Ellen's story is the best proof of that. Be sure to share your impressions of the story in the comments and write what conclusions you have drawn after listening to it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I wish you all a good mood and see you in the new video tomorrow.